tell you what I mean. We're aware that about 25 to 40% of patients who suffer a heart attack are hospitalized and receive surgical intervention, are discharged on Plavix, and never fill their first prescription. So why am I astounded by that? Well, because Plavix actually has a mortality claim, which actually means clinical trials have shown that if you have a heart attack and you intervene and you don't go on Plavix afterwards, you have a higher chance of suffering another heart attack or dying. So I actually don't know how much more of a powerful message someone can get from the big guy in the sky than to actually have a heart attack, go to hospital, be intervened, be saved, and then be discharged with a medication where someone says, this will help you continue living, and they don't take it. I don't blame the patient. I don't blame the doctor. I blame us. Because I think obviously we have failed to innovatively sell and communicate to that patient and that physician the true value proposition of that drug. Should he or she truly understand the value of taking that medication, we wouldn't have up to 40% of patients not taking their first prescription. I truly believe that the success of our healthcare industry in the future is entirely dependent upon the informed patient. It is essential that we get patients to a level of accountability for themselves. We need to make sure they can actually recognize and take action on symptoms in their own bodies. To understand, they can then go to a doctor and debate potential treatment and become part of that decision-making team and help them understand the value of remaining on medication for time to come. I believe there's an urgency around innovation and innovative marketing. I tell everyone I talk to that I am passionately concerned about the fact that our patients are waiting. Every time we miss an opportunity, every time we don't innovate effectively, a patient somewhere in the world will suffer. That's unacceptable. We cannot allow patients to suffer a single moment. In today's world, where things are moving so fast, you obviously can't innovate, sit back and rest on your laurels. The time between innovative competitiveness and your competitor catching up to you has shrunken dramatically. And innovation has therefore become a constant cycle. You're only as good as how fast you're innovating. In my company, we've been fostering and rewarding innovation in a more systematic and targeted way in several years. For example, we've been building an innovative business model around the patient. We call it our patient-centric model. This model helps us shape and drive many of our critical scientific and commercial activities, through drug discovery, through product marketing itself. A major part of the patient-centric model is, of course, what we call the patient journey. Truly understanding what happens when a patient goes from symptom to diagnosis, to treatment, to reimbursement or not, and then to adherence. Our ability to link everything we do around that patient journey allows the entire organization to focus very clearly on the importance of locking down to the patient. The innovation around that will result in patients getting more access and become more healthy in the future. We have to, as an industry today, engage candidly and constantly with physicians, employers, insurers, and of course patients. Each of these requires access to information 24/7. And I think we have for too long as an industry thought we actually operate outside the norm. We're no longer competing with ourselves or our competition. We're actually competing, as you know better than I do, for share of the space in the minds of patients and physicians against Nike, against Pepsi, and against everyone else who's out there. Because when you think about the internet and social media, some fundamental things change. The part that I really find exciting about social media is the concept of the KOL, the key opinion leader, has changed dramatically. I've always said that as large bureaucratic organizations, we solve problems in an old-fashioned, fundamental way. We solve problems through the through the organogram, through a pyramid, through the smallest bottleneck possible. We run our influencing model through the KOL model too, which is the pyramid model. And yet in today's world, in social media, anyone can become a key opinion leader. You really don't know who you're talking to or who's influencing the group in the discussion. If someone is passionate enough, intelligent enough, and knows enough about the data, he or she can sway an entire discussion or thought process and following prescription behavior. And therefore we are turning the KOL model on its side and trying to understand how do we dramatically become involved in something as different as that. The internet itself is fascinating, and of course the first question we all ask ourselves is how do you actually create a warm, inviting and sticky site? I think we've been so accustomed for years in presenting two-dimensional clinical data that we think all we're doing is doing it electronically. But the ability to make a clinical site inviting and sticky is a fascinating proposal that most of my organizations struggle to get their heads around. The three-dimensional ability to get insight into customers, customers joining with you, and the fact we're not talking to customers as we've always done, but actually engaging in customers is something very different. We've always talked to people, never engaged them. And I think the time has come for us to truly understand how do we engage and evolve the process as best we can. The biggest issue my legal organization has always is how do I put balance, fair balance in every one of my three-dimensional internet sites? How do I truly convince the FDA that patients will see fair balance when they go into my sites? How do we make sure that patients will actually follow a sequential thought process to ensure they really understand both the pros and the cons of our drug? At BMS, we're pushing efforts to partner with other pharma companies and the FDA to define smart, workable standards for presenting fair balance of pharmaceuticals when we promote them online. Whatever the nature and scope of the final standards for fair balance, one thing to me is very clear. The standards we set must help build and maintain a level of trust between ourselves and healthcare providers. Trust is the most important thing that we have as an industry. If we don't have trust in what we do, we're destroying ourselves instantaneously. Patients and physicians and payers have to rely absolutely on the value and the ethics of what we present. As I tell people, we don't send out tablets in bottles of 104 and say, here's your 100 tablets, plus 4, in case 4 don't work. Our industry guarantees that every tablet you take works. The same thing with clinical data. If we lose the trust, when I look at the trust research, I look at where we stand as an industry in terms of trust, it's actually quite frightening. We used to be at the bottom. Bankers are now at the bottom, thank goodness. We are second from the bottom. The trust and ethics to me is the most important thing we should do.